And welcome back to another extra special new episode of Tribal Council Chat. As always, we are your hosts. My name is Bruce Heller,
And my name's Phil.
and let's get started. So, this is the first of two episodes you're going to hear from us this week, and that is because just yesterday, we're recording this on Tuesday, releasing it Wednesday, but on Monday of this week, the cast was released for Survivor 46. So, we're going to go through that and react to it.
Yeah, such a short off season, but exciting. I can't believe that we're already going to be watching Survivor in this calendar month when we just finished 45. But it's going to be great. Looking forward to doing this for a second season in a row after I think 45 went really well as a season.
45 went really well, and I love off-season mode, like getting to pick random topics each week, like we did when we first started the show. So I'm kind of sad that's so short, but also more than that, I'm excited to get into another new season. So
It'll be fun with how many topics we have, though, to have the whole summer vacation for it.
yeah, for sure. So how are we going through this? I know we both looked through the
What I was thinking of, we'll go through the cast, we'll go through the like pregame interviews a bit if any points stick out to us. And then what I want to cover is kind of Bruce, you and I thinking how each player will finish in the game or how they'll do essentially. And one of the questions that everybody always looks to is when people say what they most would think they'd play like. I want to see from an initial reaction what past contestants you and I think this person on each cast member will actually play like.
and I will say there is one answer on here that we will get to for who someone said they wanted to play like that I legitimately never thought I would see as an answer to that question. So when we get to that, I'll point out which one that is, but you can probably guess it.
Sounds good. Let's get into it. So I have the Entertainment Weekly cast release in front of me.
Yep.
I'm just gonna go through each cast member in order that they appeared in that article, and then we can kind of have a bit of a pregame discussion on them.
Okay.
And I know you've gone through this article as well.
Yeah. So are we starting at the top of the article?
Starting at the top, we have Jamelia Hussein Adams, who also in brackets seems to go by Gem.
Yeah, she seems.
She is.
Go ahead.
Go,
You go.
I was just gonna say, she's 32, was born in Guyana but lives in Chicago, is an international brand mentor. Her hobbies are driving, working out, and watching TV. Um, she seems to be funny and outgoing, and says that she's a risk taker. And if something, as she says, if something risky, she's not interested in it, which I find really interesting. She talks about moving to the U.S. while she was broke, coming from South America, and has a lot of things that she's very proud of, especially her move to the States from Guyana and how she's adapted to that. Finally, she says that one thing that you would never know is that she's not from India. She's from Guyana, which is in South America. Some people don't know is how big the um, Indian community is in the north of South America, specifically the British colonies in that part of the world. And the players that she says that she'd play most like is Boston Rob, Tony, and Kelly Wentworth. So some pretty big names there.
Hey, buddy. Sorry, someone was walking outside my door. Yeah. So the thing that sticks out to me here is, like you mentioned, her being from Guyana, and as she says, moved to the States with a suitcase full of clothes and no money. And the first thing that popped into my head, and I'm really hoping for this, is the new era seems to have been heavy on backstories with some people. Like certain characters will get a heavy backstory package and a lot of them talking about where they came from to where they are. And I feel like that's going to be Gem. At least I'm hoping it is, because it seems like a really cool story.
Absolutely. She definitely seems like someone who could give us a lot in confessionals, who has a lot of experience, who maybe from her childhood will have something to offer about being in a tropical climate that a lot of people on the show wouldn't have. And um definitely someone who could be very interesting to watch this game. So
Yeah,
overall, looking at her, how do you think she's gonna do?
I'm kind of confused about that, honestly, because, like you mentioned, the three players she says she's going to try to play like are Rob, Tony, and my girl Kelly Wentworth. None of those three people play a similar game to each other. So how are you gonna play like all three? And there's another one later that I had the same reaction to, who named two names who basically have opposite strategies. I'm like, how are you gonna do both? So I'm interested to see how this goes. But read, yeah, I think I'm gonna enjoy her story and her personality based on this profile.
Like, so if you were to take a guess of about where she would finish and who you think she'll play like, what would you throw out to that?
Hmm. I am not sure, to be honest with you. It's an interesting group of answers here. I'm just confused by the three players she lists because I'm not figuring out like what she's going for there. Because Rob and Tony and Kelly all play very different games from each other.
Makes sense.
But
I'm gonna give you
if you take the best parts of each of those three, you're in good shape. Like if you have Tony minus the constant paranoia, that seems to be exhausting to have to deal with. If you watch Winners at War, I kind of feel bad for Sarah having to put up with it, but like I don't know. I think she could be interesting to watch though.
she'll probably be in that like 6 to 8 window from what I see so far. She says she's an international brand mentor and a taker. So I'm gonna go totally outside of what she did here before we move on. She says she'd play like Rob, Tony, and Wentworth. I'm gonna think she's gonna play like Angelina.
I like that. I could see that. Maybe with a little bit better like self-awareness and jury management with those around her, which I love Angelina, but like I rewatched that season late November into mid-December, and Angelina just didn't have a ton of that. I don't think she realized she was annoying the people around her, but yeah, I could see that. I kind of do get the Angelina vibe from reading this.
So next, do you want to go with the next player?
Yeah.
You can alternate in who's taking the lead on each player.
So next we have Ben Katzman, who his hometown and his current residence are both Miami, Florida. He's a musician, and something I found interesting is for risks he's taken that he's proud of. He says, quote, I quit running my independent record label at 25 just as success was starting to come. Bands I produced were in big festivals, magazines, touring the world, but I didn't like who I had become. And so I he's interesting to me because that story right there kind of shows me that he's willing to forego and throw away a good situation for a better one and something that he's happier with, which tells me he's going to play the game not just to make it to the end, but to win. I could see him as someone that could identify, hey, the track I'm on, I could be a 0 vote finalist. But
Interesting.
and then players that Ben says he wants to play list are Nick Wilson from 37 and 40 and Cody Assenmacher. Cody from 43. I don't know how to pronounce Cody's last name, but Cody.
Very interesting. So potentially near the end of the game with Ken.
Do what?
You're saying potentially near the end of the game.
Not necessarily, but I'm saying even if he's in a fairly good spot, I could see him taking a risk to make a move for a potentially better spot. I could see him being someone that identifies I have a chance to do something better and taking that risk rather than just playing it safe.
Yes, I'm maybe almost getting the opposite perspective here. And when I read this, I almost see like what you said about Ben's career and whatnot. Maybe he's just in it for the experience. And I think he's going to be one of those that loves Survivor and is a big fan of the game, but probably only makes it about 7 to 10 days.
Yeah,
And I
maybe.
think that'll be fine with him.
I could see that. He seems like he's going to be kind of the wild card of whatever tribe he's on. And just, I don't know. I kind of get cowboy vibes from him for some reason.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. All right. So moving on, next we have Jessica Chong. Something I'm interested in here is that she lists two hometowns. She lives in San Francisco, but she lists her hometowns as Hong Kong and Toronto, two
Yeah.
places that are not in the U.S., even though she lives in the U.S. now, but one place that's close to home is my former university town, which is always interesting. One of on this cast to have a connection to province of Ontario.
Yeah.
She's a 37-year-old software engineer. Considers herself compassionate and persistent. So there's some balance there. Interesting. She says when she was 24, she quit two entry-level jobs because she wanted to learn and earn more. So she definitely almost maybe the opposite of what we said with Ben isn't satisfied if she's not reaching the top.
Yeah. And she was one of the couple standouts I had the first time I read through the cast. You touched on two of the notes I had that the Hong Kong, Toronto, but also lives in San Francisco, left two entry level jobs within a year to start a freelance web design business. And by the way, one of those freelance gigs for her turned into a full time job. And the thing that sticks out to me is another thing is she says she loves mentoring people. So I kind of feel like she might get that tribe mom at it the way we've seen like a Julie or a Carolyn Rivera, where people come to her for advice and just kind of have that bond because she's going to grab it. She's a self proclaimed social butterfly who loves to mentor people. I could see her becoming just that mom figure that everyone loves and that people rely on. And also,
Can see that.
with those two things listed, one of the players that she listed for wanting to play like is Gabby from 37, who kind of has the reputation of being the person that cried on every episode of that season. But that stands out to me here because it tells me that Jessica's going to be more in touch with the emotional side of this and that part of the game, not only with herself, but how it's affecting others more than a lot of people usually are in this game when they get kind of game body.
That's a great choice. I almost thought when I it's interesting that her name is Jessica because when I almost think of a player that I kind of would put in here as someone who could use their life experience and be very game body, but also have that social connection and build bonds with the tribe, I thought of Jessica, but from 33.
Yeah, I could see that. Hopefully, not the same result because that was awful to watch. I felt so bad
That
for
was awful to
Jessica
watch.
Lewis on
And
30.
I also find it interesting, especially after the last season, where she says she makes it a priority to go to Hong Kong at least once a year.
Yeah, that's
But she
awesome.
says in March 2021, she spent 21 days in a hotel quarantine in order to see her family. So I'm like, this would be an amazing family visit if we happen to bring it back this season.
Yeah, we could. Who knows?
I
And
mean,
so,
it's not that far. Imagine them like bringing her parents from Hong Kong to Fiji as opposed to from the US.
yeah. So how far do you see her going into the game?
Probably, I guess, an early merge boot.
Yeah, I could see either early merge boot or goes home at like 5 or 6, like we saw with Julie last season, who just because she's gonna be, I think, that tribe mom character that people love but never want to go to the end with. And so, do you have anything else on Jessica before we move on?
I think we're good.
So next we have Banu Gopal. He is 41. He is from India but currently lives in Acton, Massachusetts, and is an IT quality analyst. And for when asked how his friends would describe him, he said, quote, "My friends have often called me adaptable and independent because I've lived alone in many different cities. They also tell me I'm emotional both in how I express myself, but also because of my great ability to listen and support my friends with what they're going through." And that quote right there, that last part is huge. Being able to not only be adaptable, but on the emotional side, helping other people get through the stuff they're going through when you're out there starving and struggling like you never have. A guy like that can help you get through stuff, that's going to be huge. People aren't going to want to vote that guy out. They're going to want that guy by their side.
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree with that. Um, his past accomplishments becoming a US citizen, which is interesting. Certainly something that he'll probably connect with tribe mates on, whether they be natural born US citizens or not. Um, he says things you'd never know from looking at him is that he's good at making first impressions. Well, we heard when we talked to Todd that can be everything in this game.
Yep.
And he says he'll play like Cochran. What do you think? Where's Batu going to finish?
First, though, I love this pick because I love Cochran. His arc from being like the nerdy out of his element guy that got sunburned on day one of South Pacific to like being this warrior edit that plays a perfect game in Karamoan is such a good arc. I could see Banu going pretty deep into the game. I don't have an exact number in my head, but I feel like he has a shot to go pretty deep, possibly to the end.
I'm going to say that he's your second place 1-2 vote player.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that. I'm excited to see him play for sure.
I think from what I see, the Cochran comparison that he makes is probably the most accurate one that we've touched on the list so far.
Yeah, most definitely.
Anything else you want to add?
Nope.
Okay, great. So next we have Kinsey Petty.
Yeah.
She's 29, from living in North Carolina, but originally from Michigan. She's a salon owner. Um, Passionate about doing puzzles, which is interesting for Survivor.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Fantasy romance novels and playing cards. Her friends would describe her as resilient, driven, self-sufficient, adventurous, fun, smart, inspiring, and builds people up, which is interesting. She talks about her salon shutting down during COVID as a big risk, and that the thing that she's most proud of is surviving in the pandemic, but also running a very happy work environment. Something we'd never know from looking at her, that she's a savage in Catan. Maybe she'll be a future champion of one of Michelle's online tournaments for Castaways.
Maybe.
And player that she played most like, she said Marianne, which is interesting. Another new school pick.
Yeah, so yesterday when this dropped, I texted you and said I think I have an early favorite, and this is who that was. Because she just like, and I saw a clip last night because we've been seeing like the audition tapes from Survivor's social media this off season, and she calls herself the tribe's bestie, and just seems like she's just going to be a super fun and upbeat person that I'm looking forward to seeing. As you mentioned, her biggest accomplishment in her own eyes is creating, quote, the happiest work environment in the world, which kind of plays into the positivity I'm thinking we're going to see. But also worth noting that her small business she owns survived the pandemic, and a lot of small businesses and large businesses died during the pandemic. So she's clearly a pretty smart person, able to make decisions and tough decisions. And I could see that translating into the game, especially in the later stages. Because, I mean, having that business acumen and decision making to navigate running a business at all, but surviving the pandemic as a small business is really impressive. And ultimately, she just seems like a super happy, fun, positive person that I'm going to love watching. And she has an awesome cast photo, too. So,
Yep.
this is my early favorite so far. Just not necessarily favorite to win, but I think she'll go really deep. But my personal favorite player, I have a feeling.
Interesting. So I'm going with a completely different direction then. This might be a season we don't agree in. I watched a bit more pregame context yesterday, in which I won't get into it because I don't want the comments to go wild. But she made a comment in regards to the new era and political values. And that I don't see working in such a social game, especially in this day and age. So I think she's going to go early. I
Yeah,
think she might not know when to stop talking. But
if
that's just my early take.
if she made a political comment, I completely missed that. But based on this alone and that thing where she calls herself the tribe's bestie, I'm I'm excited to see her. I think she's gonna be super fun. She gives off a super fun vibe that doesn't like what we get from these doesn't always translate to us actually liking the person on the show. But I'm excited to see her based on this. She seems like she'll be a really fun character, I think.
She does. Could go either way.
Yeah. So moving on.
Would you? What? Just out of curiosity, would you agree with the Marianne comment?
Kind of, yeah, because Marianne was that super positive,
Yeah,
friendly person that was
I would too.
almost to the point where it annoyed people in 42. And I could see that happening here, like you're saying. But I don't, yeah, just purely based off the positivity she's giving off and the upbeatness. I see the Marianne comparison for sure. And so moving on, we have Charlie Davis from his hometown is Manchester by the Sea, Massachusetts. Currently lives in Boston, Massachusetts, and is a law student. And for hobbies, he has running, and in parentheses says serious competitive running, debating, and board games. Describes himself as loyal, fun loving, and competitive. And something that we would never know looking at him is that we would never be able to tell how hard he fights for the people he loves. Past Survivor players he says he wants to play like are Spencer Bledsoe and Christian Hubicki. I love both of those players. They don't necessarily play the same game, so this is not the one I referenced earlier where I was just completely baffled by two names, but this does kind of confuse me. So what are your first impressions with Charlie here?
I think he's gonna be very good. Um, Someone that I think's in contention certainly to go as far as you can in this game. Clearly has all aspects of the game. He's a law student, so he has to be able to work with people, has to be intelligent, He also has like being a cross country captain. That's gonna be more valuable in challenges than say any football player or basketball player that has a unique skill set for the game that they play. If you're going through the jungle or swimming, that's what's gonna get you further. He says he'll play like both Spencer and Christian, which is interesting. Two great players, neither one of which has won the game. Yes, they are different, but maybe he can take some skills out of each of those games and go all the way to the end.
Yeah, I'm excited to see him. I think he could go deep. Both of the
I'm gonna
players
say, go ahead, sorry.
both of the players he listed went fairly deep into the game. I don't remember Christian's exact placement, but it was in the single digits. And Spencer finished second. It went to final three his second time. So if he can play like the people he wants to play like, he'll be in good shape.
Absolutely. I'm gonna maybe go somewhere in the middle here. I almost think that maybe his players, I I get the vibe is maybe closer to somebody like Adam or someone like, yeah, I would say Adam's probably the closest in my opinion.
I think what he's gonna end up being is that like mid to late post merge boot that's a huge blindside, like we saw with Omer in 42, or like we saw with Drew this past season in 45, where it's somebody needs to make a move for their resume, and so they take out Charlie. And so, yeah,
Just moving on, we have Liz Wilcox, currently in Orlando, but also originally from Michigan. So a couple of Michigan players on this cast. Interesting. Says she likes running, telling jokes, and quote as a hobby, making money. Well, you have probably the best chance to make $1 million in this of anywhere else you'll find in life. Says people would describe her as relentless, and says there. So she's divorced. She says there was a moment in her marriage that she knew it wouldn't work and decided to leave, but had no plan, no cash. It was really scary. So that's a really unique life experience. Um, I think let me guess. This is the player that you're talking about.
yeah, she says she wants to play like Russell and Sandra. And I
Yeah,
don't think it's possible to do both. They basically play opposite games. And the season they were both on, they couldn't stand each other. So I don't know how you play like both of those.
I agree. I don't know how you play like both either. This is very interesting. She says that she had a disability until the age of 7 where she was mute, but then is now a public speaker. So that's
Wow.
impressive.
Yeah.
On this, so she says she'd play like Russell and Sandra. I agree with you. I don't know where that can fit in. My guess is that she's going to play like Aubrey.
Yeah, I could see that. Maybe like the strategic mind of Russell. I mean, Russell's one of the best strategic minds we've seen, so not that level, but like that concept of being good strategically. But like with a microscopic, tiny little amount of jury management that Russell couldn't even find that. So maybe that's what she means. Russell's strategic game, but like in a way that doesn't make everyone hate you.
So yeah, I would say for her, maybe finish around 9th, 10th.
I see it. My prediction is either like early post merge or late pre merge, kind of like middle of the game. I don't think she's
Yeah,
first boot,
I
but
would
I
agree.
don't think she goes deep at all either.
Yeah, I think I might be changing my mind in listening to you there. Some pre pre-merge, pre-jury, but probably to the end of it. I don't think she goes right away.
Air quotes, because I really don't even know what they qualify as the merge or the jury anymore, because they keep changing it. I
Yeah,
I
none of us do.
I titled an episode during 45 Earn the Jury because I made fun of Probst calling it Earn the Merge when they had already merged onto one beach, only to find out that the first boot of the next episode still didn't make the jury. So, joke's on me there for making fun of the show.
Yeah, that was awkward.
I don't know what I. Two tribes, unless it's Thailand, two tribes, one beach, merged. Unless they start that way because One World was weird. But yeah, I think she'll be early pre-merge. No, late pre-merge, early post-merge is my guess. Just middle of the game. So if I can get my web page to scroll, because Safari is freezing up on me.
Next, we have David Jelinski, who has in quotes Jelinski. So it seems like this castaway goes by his last name.
Yep.
Interesting. I mean, he isn't Hatcher Lucina just yet, but
He could be Gabler.
22 slot machine salesman. So obviously he lives in Vegas. I mean, where else can you do that job?
Yeah. Atlantic.
His favorite. He likes sports, trivia, and Magic and other card games. Passionate, confident, intelligent. He says his closest friends would say he think he knows everything and he's too smart for his own good. That line has pre-merge written all over it for him.
Yes, but he also, where is it? He also says his friends would describe himself as someone who has grown and matured over the years. So,
Interesting.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I do see that.
Also, the what past survivor would you play the game the most like? He lists 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people. Fabio from 21, Sammy from 43, Russell, Tyson, and Rick Devens. I have no idea what to make with that giant glob of players that.
But I mean, I'm sure you'll enjoy him to a point. He is a Taylor Swift fan.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have no idea what to expect from this guy, but he's going to be entertaining either way.
I agree. He'll be entertaining. I'm going to think maybe about a third boot.
So, like Jarris or JD from 41, kind of that vibe. Yeah,
Exactly.
I could see it. Okay, so moving on, we have Maria Schreim Gonzalez, who is hometown and current residents are both Dallas, Texas. Occupation, she says she is a parent coach, which is interesting. That's a term I heard for the first time when I was reading this yesterday.
I heard for the first time, and it's a term I don't want to hear anymore.
I don't know what it means. Are you like coaching people on how to be a parent? Are you like a coach of your kid's team?
I'm just gonna throw this out here. It might not be popular, but if you need a parent coach, you should not have children.
I mean, being a parent for the first time can be scary. I get it, but there's about 2 million books also. But whatever helps you prepare yourself, I'm not going to knock it. I just don't know what it is. So, but I think you'll like her, though. The first.
You laugh when you say we both don't know what it is because I saw this one thing. When it who was it? 44 or something. There was someone who was a yogi. It was Heidi or something.
I think so.
And I remember Tyson making a comment online that said, "What's a yogi? I have no idea what this is, and Parvati is like me."
And those two are super close, also. So the fact that Tyson didn't know that is, I mean, on brand for Tyson, but still funny. I go back and forth on whether I like Tyson or not. I don't like him in Tocantins at all, but by the time we get to Winners at War, his just random dry humor is
Yeah.
funny to me.
And this might be weird, but I almost think my favorite iteration of Tyson is him versus Lucina on the challenge.
Yeah, that was weird too. But
Yeah.
I think you'll like Maria though, because like for her favorite hobbies, the first one she lists is travel. She says travel, running, and spending time with friends. And then
It's definitely somebody who when it comes to players like Michelle and Sydney, what I choose to cheer for is fellow travelers. Throw Caleb in there as well.
yeah. And then here's what's interesting. For her biggest risk in her mind, she says, after college and before grad school, I moved to Costa Rica to volunteer with World Teach as an English teacher. And that was one of the most transformative years of my life. So somebody that clearly has a passion and a skill for helping others, which I think will probably make her pretty likable and desirable to work with to those around her.
And then she says something that you wouldn't know from her is that she ate sheep's head in Morocco. Let's keep that in Morocco, not in Fiji. Sandra's not on this island.
Yeah, well, James ate a bat on a season of Survivor.
Yeah.
So we're used to seeing
She
them eat weird things.
she got lost as a child on the Champs Elysees in Paris. Wow. I've been to the Champs Elysees in Paris. You don't want to get lost there as a young kid.
Oh no.
That's impressive that she was able to handle that situation and not completely freak out.
Yeah, I would have.
And it also means that she's been traveling her whole life, not just as an adult, too. Because most of us as kids don't just get to go to Paris.
Yeah. I can't imagine getting lost in Paris, not especially as a child, but like if I'm like in my backyard and I get lost, like I get lost easily sometimes. So I can't imagine doing that as a child in a strange city.
Yeah,
But
couldn't either. Might be a little better for me because j'ai parlé en français, but
she said for past Survivor players she wants to play like she lists my personal favorite winner, Natalie Anderson, who I'm excited to see if she can play that Natalie style game because it's very entertaining and fun to watch. And in the case of Winners at War, Natalie was super inspiring to a lot of people. Came all the way back to finish second place on that season. And the other one she lists is Drea Wheeler, which you don't see on these very often. And this isn't the one I
very
was shocked and
interesting.
floored by, but it's still kind of a weird choice.
Yeah. I think I so far what Maria's saying. She's definitely someone that would be in like my top 3, 4 with the contention to win.
Yeah, I could see it for sure.
She says that Drea and Natalie. Yeah, I think those are good comparisons. It's a lot to say Natalie as far as seeing how her physical game will stand up,
Yeah,
but definitely that I'm almost surprised I might even think of adding Michelle to this list.
yeah. The thing with Natalie is in Winners at War, because most of her game was from Edge, the physical is what shined in those fire token challenges, in the battle back, in the final immunity. But if you go back to San Juan del Sur, she was incredible strategically also. And so, like, I love the comparison and shooting for that, but I'm kind of hesitant whenever people say answers like Rob or Tony or Parvati or Natalie, and they list these all-time greats of the game, because that's just a huge bar to try to jump for. That they're greats for a reason, and that's because not a lot of people play that game as well as they do. So we'll see if she can pull it off. I hope she can.
Yeah, so do I. Next up, this give brings us to Hunter McKnight, 28 from Mississippi. he's it's interesting. He's only 28 and he's a science teacher. I think the last science teacher he won, but he was at the completely opposite end of the age spectrum, being Bob.
Yep, Bob was old then. So
Yeah.
and
His favorite hobby is, in addition to sports and camping, building survivor challenges at home. That's interesting. Maybe a like David Wright Christian side of his game.
Carson.
Um, Carson, yeah, that's the name I was looking for. Joined college in 3.5 years, so he likes to accomplish things, and he graduated with a 4.0 GPA. Interesting.
Yeah. And I like
As someone who graduated college in 5 years, that is a very big accomplishment. He says he'll play like Hayden Moss.
I
That's
was
a name you don't hear all that often.
I was about to say that, I and one of the first few episodes we did was about the Blood versus Water twist. I love both Blood versus Water seasons. I love Hayden. I can. He was like the first person that missed the cut when we were doing for me when we were doing our second chance cast. I think he's so much fun, such an underrated player for a one-time player. I think he won his season of Big Brother, so he's good strategically. So, if Hunter can play like Hayden, then I'm excited to see it.
Like that comparison from what I see so far. And if Hunter's listening out there, I don't know if he's single, dating, married. He didn't really say. But if he does have a girlfriend or a wife, he doesn't have to worry about not making the merge.
Yeah. Gosh darn it, I forgot about that. Kat Ederson has some great quotes on her two
Oh,
seasons.
she sure does. I'm gonna say he's gonna be about fifth, sixth, maybe taken out right before a guy who is a science teacher who loves going camping gets a chance to build fire.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that's the farthest he goes because people won't want to make fire against him. But I could also see him going a little bit earlier than that, also, for whatever reason. Because just there's so many what seem like good players here, and not everyone can make it to the end. So someone's got to go earlier than we think. But I think he'll at least make it to the mid post merge.
Yeah.
So moving on, we have what?
Sorry, go ahead.
Your audio is in and out. What'd you say?
Said next, that brings us to Mariah Gaynor. He is from Boca Raton, Florida originally, which is a Miami suburb, but has moved all the way across the country and now lives in San Diego, California. She enjoys beer brewing, surfing, and playing Dungeons and Dragons. Um, Driven, quirky, sentimental. Her friends would define her as a go-getter. Um, and one of the largest risks she took was moving to California, where she had a trunk full of clothes in a studio apartment and was only working part-time.
Yeah, from a lot of these answers, I feel like she has a lot of potential. The thing that makes me really nervous with her, and I feel like is gonna have her going out earlier than we may think, is what's something we would never know from looking at you? Her answer was, you would never know how much I second guess myself. And you can't do that in this game. We saw it with
No, you can't.
we saw it with Kelly last season in 45, who felt like she was in trouble but just had no reason to actually believe it. There was no sign showing of it. And she went home with an idol, I believe. So I feel like she'll probably be pre-merged just because something like that'll happen. She'll second guess herself on something and it'll be the wrong choice. But
Yeah, I agree. I think maybe she's the type of player who's in a decent position in her tribe, but then one of her alliance members, loses their vote like everybody does lately, or someone else has an idol from whatever island they end up going to this year. And that probably costs a game maybe anywhere from the second to the fifth boot.
Yeah, probably. And so moving on, we have Q Burdett, who is from Mississippi but now lives in Tennessee. He's a real estate agent, which means he's good at, I mean, he sells houses. He's good at being persuasive and selling things. Thing he's most proud of is being the first person in his entire family to graduate college. He's one of 17 kids. Wow.
If you put his family plus his parents, they'd be bigger than everybody in the game.
Yeah. They could have their own season. I'd watch it.
Yeah. You just might piss off all of your relatives if you win.
Yeah, well, they're stuck with you. You're gonna see them at Thanksgiving or whatever holidays anyway. You may as well have bragging rights when you're sitting at the dinner table.
Yeah.
So, where was I?
Biggest risk.
That would be, yeah, biggest risk that changed my life for the better would have to be quitting my job to start my career in real estate. And for the question that's the last question on here, but when I look through these every season, it's always the first question I look at, which is the who do you want to play like section. His answer is bits and pieces from a lot of Survivor players, which sounds smart because you can never fully replicate someone else's game. You have to play your own. But I have no idea what to expect based off of that.
Yeah. What to expect either. But I mean, only his other experience, regardless of how he answered that question, I think he's gonna go very far.
Yeah,
Um,
and like I mentioned earlier with, oh, let me scroll back up. What was her name? The first one with Jem, where I
Yeah.
said I feel like she'll be one of those that we get like a big backstory package for. I could see that being Q also.
Yeah, I agree.
One of 17. So hopefully we get to see that. I like those where we get to know them and get to know them as people rather than just players.
Yeah.
Okay, so who do we have next?
Next we have Soda Thompson, originally from Long Island, but she now lives in New Jersey. Oh, I just lost my page. Just give me 2 seconds.
That's okay. I've got it pulled
Technology
up. I
some
can pick it
days.
up. Soda is a special ed teacher. Her favorite hobbies include singing, taking walks, and doing random crafts. 3 adjectives to describe herself are intentional, determined, and empathetic. How would your friends describe you? If I'm honest, my friends might say I'm silly, extra, and anxious at times, but they bear with me. And what risks has she taken? I got married super young to a man from Brazil I had only known for 6 months at the time. And for the player
mean,
who wants to play like, she says season 42. So,
I don't know how you'll play like a season, but I mean, there's certainly some great players on season 42.
yeah.
If she wants to say a bit of, I don't know, Marianne, Mike, Lindsay, and Cody, she could be a very good player. But
On,
who knows what that means?
I hope I'm wrong on this because the person I'm about to say didn't go very far. But between just the being crafty and the exclamation points on her favorite hobbies and being super determined and positive, the vibe I'm getting is Mariah from 43, who sat at like, and for Mariah sat in 43 and like was trying to find the positive and the silver linings of we're at tribal council, but we didn't do that badly in the challenge. At least it was close and went home first. So
Yeah,
hopefully
I
Soda doesn't have the same result, but that's kind of the same vibe I'm getting here.
I get that vibe as well. I think it's a good asset, like where she has all this experience working with people who are handicapped, and that's great in a social game. I think her overt positivity and empathy might hold her back in such a cutthroat environment.
Yep. By the way, awesome name. Soda is such a cool name.
Yeah.
As I take a sip of my soda can I have sitting here next to me. Okay, so
All right. Moving on, we have Landon Montalivo. He's from born in Brooklyn, but he's living in Orlando, Florida right now. He works in aerospace tech, so I mean, yeah, that makes sense that you work near NASA.
smart guy.
Um, he likes running, sports cars, not sports, sorry, and extreme rides. Again, Orlando makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, he's analytical, persistent, and passionate.
Analytical makes a
Relentless.
lot of sense for aerospace.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. He talks about joining the military when he was younger as a risk that he's taken. While he was in an existing family, that's really interesting. It'll and he says something you'd never know is my favorite people he'd like to meet is Jeff Probst. Well, you're gonna do that one,
Yeah.
as well as Neil deGrasse Tyson and Mikano Kachu. I don't have a clue who either of those are. Do you?
Neil deGrasse Tyson is a space scientist that's on TV sometimes. He's really smart. He explains stuff.
Well,
He's
this makes
famous.
sense.
I don't know who the other guy is, but Neil deGrasse Tyson is a really I don't know the word. The technical term isn't space scientist, but that's what I'm gonna go with. Maybe astrophysicist. I don't know.
Makes sense.
He's smart and he explains stuff on TV to those of us that
Hey,
aren't as smart as he is.
he says Xander, which is an interesting one. I mean, one, Xander got no votes, but two, based on how much kind of like science stuff he's had, I thought we would be getting a Christian or a Carson here.
So I get it though, because Xander is somebody that we got a good edit from, and he made it all the way to the end, but got no votes because people didn't feel like they had a personal connection with him. And a lot of these people, like Randon, who are super smart and analytical, kind of like how Emily started last season, they're not great at making those personal connections. So he might go deep. I could see him being someone that goes deep into the game like Xander, but doesn't have the connections and the personal bonds and relationships to get the jury votes needed to win.
Sense.
And so, how far do you see him going?
Mid-range.
Mid merge, you said?
Punch.
Okay. Yeah, I think it'll either be mid post merge, or I could see him being a zero vote finalist like Xander, which is kind of what I just talked about, but one of those two.
Makes sense.
Moving
Okay.
on, we
We
have Tiffany
next.
Nicole. We have
Yep.
Tiffany
Tiffany Nicole
Nicole
Irvin.
Irvin, who is 33. Hometown is Franklin Township, New Jersey, but currently lives in Elizabeth, New Jersey. She
And
is
for those of you wondering, Elizabeth, New Jersey is the township that contains Newark International Airport, so relatively close to Midtown Manhattan.
wait, Newark Airport isn't in Newark, it's in another town?
It's well, Elizabeth County is like just south of downtown Newark.
Okay. Never mind. I was really confused for a second. Tiffany is an artist, which makes sense because her favorite hobbies she lists are painting and photography. And she says, does eating count as a hobby? And I am going to go ahead and say, yes, it does. Because
I
I
am going
enjoy
to
eating
too.
also.
as someone who just had a DQ Blizzard before this podcast.
Yeah. 3 adjectives that best describe yourself. She says curious, passionate, and artistic. And how would your friends describe you? She says, my friends always tell me that I live in a land of rainbows and unicorns. And again, I'm starting to get Mariah from 43 again. And,
Mariah gave us that very visually.
but the thing is, the super positivity like that doesn't have to be Mariah. It could be Marianne also. It doesn't matter if you know how to play it. And like, I don't know. And like Kenzie earlier kind of identified that in herself when she said Marianne, I think. So I'm hoping I'm wrong on with Tiffany and with Soda that I'm getting that Mariah vibe. I hope they go deeper into the game. But past Survivor players she wants to play like, she says Jeremy or Shan. So that's an interesting combination.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts here?
And then this I find interesting. She says something that you wouldn't know from looking at her, that she loves playing the lottery. And I want to really touch on that because this might be just my opinions. I'm somebody who does play a bit of blackjack, especially when I'm on cruises. But in my mind, those and how this plays into Survivor, those smart gambles and those stupid gambles.
Yeah.
And smart gambles are ones that you can win, or that you have a realistic shot of winning. And the lottery is a stupid one. You have a one in millions of shots to win. So I wonder if she might be a bit over aggressive in terms of playing the game.
Maybe.
All of this to me, not just that question, but everything I'm reading here, the positivity that you talked about, whatever Jeff calls it, like earn the merge or whatnot, even though it's not really the merge, I guess. I think this is how earn the merge boot.
I think so too.
Looking at Tiffany.
I could totally see that. And so, do you want to get the next one?
We have Kevin Davis, Tevin. He is 24 from Virginia. He's an actor, which is interesting. You would not think an actor would be in Metro DC. You would expect them to be out on the West Coast. He likes going to the beach, listening to music and fashion. His friends would describe him. I asked all my friends in some complicated run-on sentence that I don't think you all want to listen to me try to read on the air, but you can all see it online. He says one of the biggest risks he's taken is saying yes to be the theater director to Beauty and the Beast when he was in the 8th grade. He didn't want to say yes, but it changed his life forever. And that he's also taken many risks being an advocate for Black people, minorities, and the oppressed. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
He's a country boy at heart, which he says you wouldn't know by looking at him. And he says he'd play like Marianne and Cochran. I'm not sure I get this Marianne thing at all.
No, I don't really get the Cochran thing either.
Don't either. Yeah.
I do love the sentence he says, though. I asked all my friends to describe me, and I compiled a run-on sentence of things that came up most. That makes me smile. That's so funny to me. He's gonna be a fun character to watch. I don't know if he'll be a good player and good at the game, but he's gonna be a fun character to watch. He'll be good TV.
He'll definitely be a good character. Who knows how far he's gonna make it, but I do think he'll entertain us for a couple of weeks.
For sure. For sure.
I'm not sure I get the Marianne or Cochran thing at all.
No, and that's always the first thing I look at with these players is who they're gonna try to play like. But so many times, and we've seen it a few times here, that answer doesn't always match the answers they give to the other questions. So trying to figure that out is always interesting. And a lot of times we analyze this preseason stuff as fans, and we're completely wrong. Except for last season, when I looked at the EW thing and I read D's thing and I said I bet she's gonna win and I predicted that. So just a little reminder that I finally got a preseason prediction correct, everybody. Now back to
You
your
sure did.
regular now back to your regularly scheduled cast analysis.
All right. Ready to move on?
Yeah.
So I think I'm just gonna jump in and read another cast here because it's only fitting that I read the only Canadian on this cast and give my thoughts about them first. So we have Venus Vafa, who's 24 from Richmond Hill, Ontario, somewhere that I have a lot of friends, but currently lives in Toronto. Her hobbies are playing poker, creative writing, and making short films. She says, this is gonna sound weird as hell, but cleaning is one of my favorite hobbies. Okay, I guess my mom has a favorite player.
Mine too.
Passionate, persistent, and sassy are her words. She says her friends would describe her as someone with a tough exterior. Think Regina George from Mean Girls.
But see,
I've never seen someone compare themselves to a movie character, let alone Regina George, before.
but the Regina George comparison honestly makes sense the way she phrases it because tough exterior but secret softy. I actually really like that comparison. I'm liking Venus so far going through this.
Damn too. And this is interesting. She said she grew up in a very conservative household, and when she took the time to move to a university, she went somewhere that was 8 hours away instead of 30 minutes away from home. I know Richmond Hill very well, and it is like the biggest, very conservative. Venus identifies as Persian. It's a very conservative Iranian community within the Canadian society.
Okay.
Um, so I can see that being a challenge for someone who, like we said, with identifying towards the character Regina George, comes off as a bit more modern and Western. At least I'm getting that sense.
Yeah.
And she says players that she would play like are Parvati and Suri. Now, those two big names, I don't know based on everything else she said about the Suri comparison.
No,
I
but I
can
see
see
the
the Parvati
Parvati.
one. Yeah.
And this is one of my. I said Kenzie is probably my favorite from this so far coming into the season. Venus is near the top for me also. She seems like she's going to be really interesting. Her talking about just like, I don't know if this is a hobby, but cleaning is fun. Just kind of the like honesty and quirkiness there makes me smile. And I know over at like RHAP, Rob and Bryce Isaiah from 28 will go through before every season and like look at the cast pictures. Venus is kind of like killing it in this picture with the pose. Like her facial expression looks like she's ready to vote me out and kill me. And I just from these
Saw online
do what?
I saw online a comment about this cast photo that somebody said Stephanie Gonzalez is back, but she's gonna make it way further than 3 days.
Oh, that's funny. I guess I see it. I see the
Yeah.
part comparison from all of these answers. Like I said earlier, when people list the all-time greats as somebody on this, it kind of makes me nervous, but I like her. I think she'll go far. The Regina George thing makes me laugh and smile
Yeah.
just because Mean Girls is a funny movie, and the new one is good also. But I see it. Like I think she'll be a fun character. I see her going deep into the game, possibly winning. I'm not gonna make my official winner pick yet. I'll save that for another preseason episode we're planning. But
We'll do that right before the season starts.
yeah, she's definitely someone I'm considering for that though. I think she'll do really well.
Excellent. I agree. I like the comparison. I think she'll do very well. I'm gonna say top four.
Yeah.
Do you want to go ahead with our last player?
Yeah, so at the beginning of the episode, I said with one of these players, I read who they wanted to play like, and I was just baffled by it because it's not a name I ever thought I'd saw an answer for. And that's our last player here. His name is Tim Spicer. And when asked what Survivor player he wants to play the game most like, he says Shamar Thomas. And if the name doesn't ring a bell, Shamar played on 26, Karamoan, the second fans versus favorites. And the almost entirety of the scenes we got from him were people complaining about him or fussing at him for just laying in the shelter and not doing anything all day. So I'm really confused what from Shamar's edit Tim wants to play like here. But that answer was a doozy for me.
I'm gonna quickly look up this. I'm just wondering if maybe does Tim have any like life experience in the Marine Corps or something that might draw him to that pick? I
Maybe.
have no idea yet,
Did
but
you find that
I'm
pick as
thinking it.
weird? Did you find that as weird of a pick as I did though?
Yeah, I did. I want. I'm thinking that he has to either have some sort of military background and therefore looked up to Shamar outside the game, or he just doesn't want to give anything away, and that could be very smart too, though.
Yeah, it could be.
I Tim says he's goal orientated, charismatic, strategic. His favorite hobbies include watching Survivor, which I mean is another given. I think he might just be trying to keep his cards close to his chest before the edit comes out.
Which makes sense, but also when you're filling this out, the other contestants don't see this before you start playing. So,
They don't.
do what?
But I just mean in terms of the audience, he
Oh,
might not want us to have preconceptions about him.
that makes sense. I do like that for accomplishment he's most proud of. He has a giant list. He lists two names that I'm assuming are his kids: optimistic in all situations, Morehouse College, parenthood, love of my life, Jasmine, introduced Barack Obama, Survivor called me back, homeowner, making it to 30, and traveled to several continents. Just based on the
I definitely want to watch him play before I make a judgment because I think there's a lot he's not telling us. I just think that there's something there that he might be very good at this game, but he also could be a first boot.
yeah, and the variety of things on that list I just read off tell me he's got some life experience and that I could possibly see him being someone that tells some cool stories. But he'll be an interesting character. I hope he's not Shamar, but that the idea of somebody coming out there wanting to play Survivor like Shamar was just a thought that entertained me yesterday. So even if that's not what happens, that entertained me greatly.
If my guess is right and that he did serve in the military, I'm hoping he's not Shamar. I'm hoping he's Gabler.
Or Rudy.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you went to Gabler. You're the big Rudy fan on the show. I love Rudy too, but
Nobody can touch Rudy when it comes to being the veteran on this show.
true. You gotta have goals though. Okay.
All right.
So a
That
line
was a good.
first boot. Do you have any names?
Yes, I do. So we talked about players that people say that they'd play like. I decided to go off of this cast. I'm gonna give you, if I was on the show, the three players that I would list as who I would play like.
Okay.
Stephen Fishback, Adam Klein. Go.
Who is the first name other than Steven and Adam? Your audio cut out. Priscilla? Michelle. Sorry, I can barely hear you, but I see it now. I just couldn't hear it. But
yeah, no fella.
Oh, there, your audio's back all of a sudden. But first boot Michelle, because winner. Well, Adam's there too.
Who's the winner?
I forgot it. Okay, so I'm aligning with Fish because it's proven I can get to the end with him and have a shot at winning because JT did it. So, and JT's a very social, relationship driven person, and that's how in Tokenshinji was at least. That would very much be how I play. So I would kind of try to be the JT, even though when Fish came back for Cambodia, he kind of, and he talks about this as the reunion, was very intentional about not letting JT happen again, and kind of saw Joe as this white whale JT golden. So maybe I'll be in trouble, but I'm aligning with Fish. The other two are a toss up. They're both winners. And I feel like both of them would respect being blindsided enough where I would have a shot at their jury vote. So
Absolutely.
kind of just flip a coin there. So for you, I have what is
I'll go with mine first.
okay.
I'm gonna say I found it interesting that you brought up Fishback's Tocantins game because I almost think I'd model myself off his Cambodia game, even though he didn't do as well there.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna align with Michelle, blindside Steven, first boot Adam.
Yeah. So I'm going to go with what I think will be my three favorite play, at least my two favorite players from the preseason, and someone that I think will be a really entertaining character. We've got Kenzie, we've got Venus, and just because I really don't know what to expect from this person, he seems like a mystery. David Jelinski, who he's going to refer to himself as only his last name, I'm guessing.
All right. I'm gonna ally with Venus, Canadian.
Yeah.
That's a given. I'm going to blindside Jelinski. I have no idea really what to think about him, but I think he's in a gaming position, so might have something in common that would be fun. And then also, I think if you're in Vegas, you can probably take a loss just as easy as you can take a win.
Yeah.
And that's going to lead me to first boot Kenzie.
That's solid. I feel like I'll probably first boot Jelinski just because I don't know what to expect, and I kind of feel like, and that not knowing is kind of frightening to me if I'm thinking as a like how I'd be as a player. Whereas with Kenzie and with Venus, I kind of have an idea. I think I'm going to align. Well, I want to align with Kenzie. That's my first response. But going to the end with someone that likable and everyone's friend is kind of like that's the card I want to play. I want to be the one that has like the JT, like the Michelle, like the Nick Wilson that has the great bonds. So I think I'm gonna blindside Kenzie actually as I'm talking this through, which would lead me to align with Venus.
Interesting. I like it.
That was kind of some good problem solving on the spot there as I thought that out.
Yeah.
Okay, do we
Oh,
have
that
any?
was great.
That was fun.
And take a look out. We're going to have this as a kind of cast assessment, but then we'll be doing a bit more preseason content. We still have another couple of episodes before the season starts, and then after episode 1, we're going to get into reviewing the episodes. This year, unlike last season, we want to get a bit more time to interact with fans online and to talk to our listeners about how they're liking the season. So we're gonna continue with what we did in the summer and in the off season, and launch episodes on Saturday, thus giving us the whole weekend and up to Wednesday to really go stay on this week and not always feel like we're a week behind.
Yeah, and so also this is like I said earlier, the first of two episodes you guys will hear from us this week. This is dropping on Wednesday. On the we still have another episode coming for you guys on Saturday on our normal episode day. So be watching out for that. That's going to be a really fun episode.
Should
And
be.
that's all we have. Subscribe on YouTube, follow. Subscribe on YouTube, follow on Facebook and Instagram.
Excellent. Bye.
Bye, guys. Have a great week.